Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like the casual approach to the hobby. And on this podcast, we like to talk about the games that we run and the games that we play and the cool, wonderful people that we get to experience the hobby with. If it's your first time hearing about tabletop RPGs, like, hey dude, what are you doing? Go find yourself a table. And if you are a player at someone's table, maybe it's your turn to jump behind the GM screen and run a game for your table.
Indeed. So this week we're getting back into the swing of things with a Pathfinder recap of the third campaign that has been run by our wonderful friend Tim, following up on the previous two, which have been some of the best games that I've been a part of. So I'm really looking forward to where things go with this. It was a pretty, it was a beginning that left us with a lot of questions, and I'm really curious to see where things go. But before we get into all that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by me, Ramon. Haha, I've got one this week. It's so exciting. Actually, I guess this is less of like I guess it's a GM tip, but it's kind of like a life tip. Just like organize all of your notes. It's so like I was preparing some stuff, going through all of my drafts and notes on my Google Drive for all of the campaigns and stuff that we run and organizing it and stuff like that. But it really helped me feel better about jumping back in a year and starting to GM more, because I was like, oh yeah, wait a minute, I did all this work before, I could totally do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you haven't GM'd for a while. I think that just like rereading some of your old notes or some of your old plans will get you in the spirit to jump behind the GM screen and continue those campaigns or start a new one or whatever you want to do. Definitely is a way to kind of kickstart your ass into gear and stop procrastinating GMing or figuring out a new campaign or whatever you want to run for the year.
Yeah, it's definitely also useful when you have a setting that you're using and you have your own homebrew setting and you just want to make sure you keep track of all the NPCs and stuff that are there. You want to make sure that's decently organized so that if you need someone for a specific purpose, you at least know how to find them.
Yeah, and it makes the daunting task of filling a whole world full of nonsense easier, or at least finding a place to start.
Yeah,
easier.
Exactly.
Okay.
Actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Calvin.
No, I was gonna say you just reminded me of a thought that I had where I realized I think it's only really Pathfinder where I've done like majorly homebrew setting stuff. Like every other game I play, I try to at least base it on the setting of that game vaguely. I just realized over the weekend earlier, I'm so used to playing Pathfinder with a homebrew setting that's just kind of how I always feel I need to play it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even know what's going on in Galarian proper. Like, you're just like, whatever.
That's the thing. Like, some Starfinder stuff I know. But yeah, I think it's just like when I started playing Pathfinder is with you guys and you're doing like a homebrew setting. So to me, that's just how the game functions.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there you go, folks. Is your tip of the week. If you feel like you haven't started your GMing stuff this year, just go read your old notes. It'll definitely get you into gear and kind of break some writer's block that you might be having.
All right, so let's get into this particular episode. So we've talked about this game, or at least these last couple of games on the podcast multiple times. Tim has run, it started off with a Pathfinder 2e conversion of the Lost Mine of Phandelver campaign, and then it went to the Unintended Consequences campaign, wherein we had to deal with the consequences of our many actions throughout the first campaign. And now we are on to Campaign 3, Aftermath. I gotta say, I'm enjoying the title. I don't know what it exactly results in, but I like the title so far. It's very dramatic. It's a very Part 3 title, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like one of them like video game titles, like whatever Aftermath, like.
Yeah.
Or was it like like a Transformers movie subtitle or something like that.
I'm sure one of them was Aftermath. I don't know which.
Yeah, actually, maybe.
So to catch up on the players and characters of that campaign, we have Silrona, our resident cowboy wizard, Teeks, a changeling druid, Bren, a human ranger monk. We have Finn, who is a human... I forget the class. Magus, I think it was?
Yes, mages.
And Kavo, or Kavo, depending on how you pronounce the name, as a half-orc barbarian, who we had, at the end of the campaign, we had helped save his home from a dragon attack. That was, again, sort of the overarching arc of the previous campaign. If you go check out the previous episode, you can get more details on that. But we catch up with our characters sometime after that. Kavo stayed behind to help out his tribe. And it's a few weeks later, and the rest of the party is basically traveling back northwards to... I think we're going to Neverwinter at this point. Or maybe we'll swing by Phandalin, because, we'll be in the area.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're just sort of getting used to, adjusting back to, not having a looming threat over us. Teeks is certainly focused on... Over the course of the adventure, we had recovered Teeks' sea hag, actual sea hag mother, and she had been imprisoned for some time, so Teeks was going to try to rehabilitate the sea hag to live in normal society, which was probably not going to go very well.
Yeah. Well, at least the start of the campaigns, I think all the characters were a little bit. I mean, I know that Silrona was a kind of lost at what to do, right? Because we book it his big bad guy was taken care of, and the looming threat to his family and friends have been taken care of. So now it's we got a breather, and we're like, oh, sick. We don't have to be stressed out anymore. What are we doing? Right.
Yeah, Silrona and Bren. In the 6 weeks between the two campaigns, they had been working on getting buffed together.
Well, I mean, Bren's already buff, but Bren's working on Silrona to get buff, which, yeah, I think I moved around some stat points and gave myself +2 to strength so I can punch a little bit better. And now I can throw Bren fists.
Did you take a level in Monk, or...
Oh, I took a dedication feat, or Silrona took a dedication feat, dedication monk. So let's see how that goes. I mean, it'd be fun. I don't think any of the wizard ones feats for 8th level really spoke to me. So I was like, I think it'd be funnier if Silrona also is a punched cowboy wizard. That would be pretty fun.
Nice. I always thought you were going to take some gunslinger stuff.
I thought so too, but and then I don't know, something I think it was during the start of the in the intermediate between the last session and this new session that we were joking in Discord that we're gonna be swole wizard.
True.
That definitely caught me, and so Silrona being a little bit of a joke character, he's like, yeah, I want to be Jack now.
Fair enough, that makes sense. And Josephine, aka Finn, had during our travels acquired a magical salt shaker from a chef that we had saved along the way. I'm still not sure what it does, but I feel like it's probably going to come up in a very clutch last-minute moment. But all in all, we were traveling and we ended up in the port town of Thornhold, which is somewhere we had stopped previously. During our journey, it's where we had been attacked by Silrona's main rival, the multidimensional hobgoblin assassin High Hat Harry. That is where he was defeated. And we got back there. It was in, I guess, a little bit better condition. We had some time to catch up with some people there, including Tom, who was the navigator who helped us out on our ship. When we were sort of setting off towards this final confrontation with our enemy. While we were there, we were doing some, basic adventuring stuff, selling old gear, looking for sandwiches, which is a key part of any adventure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, I don't know. I think that port is just a sandwich port now, because every time we go there, we just buy sandwiches.
Yeah.
It's just like the place that we go get the sandwiches. We're in the good sandwich place. We're going to get the good sandwiches. What's the point of traveling all this way if you're not going to get sandwiches?
Exactly. It's like having a local restaurant that you like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, relatively normal day until, and like every good adventure, there's an until. There was this sudden wave, this sudden lethargy, this sudden lack of energy that affected everyone nearby with human ancestry, causing them to fall unconscious. And even though we couldn't see it, this was also happening to Kavo, who was miles away. And as we were falling unconscious, some of us, Finn and Bren specifically, were able to see that this was sort of starting to happen to everybody around them. And they were like somewhat aware, as it felt like they were, captured within this dark void, this space, where they couldn't really see anything, and they were unable to move. Silrona and Teeks, though, were completely unconscious as this wave came over them. Finn was able to pick up on the presence of something nearby. She couldn't see it, but there was this sense of, she could, I guess, sense the emotions of it, this panic and confusion and fear, but nothing fully distinct. And Finn was sort of just barely able to move as Silrona and Teeks were stirring. And it was as if she was like her soul or her body was trying to move through some sort of thick fluid, and then heard the sound of this dark, thundering laughter that seemed to be coming from around her and from her. And at that point, Kavo, additionally being in this space, was trying to rage through it, but it didn't seem to have any effect. And after some time, Bren and Silrona were able to, they were trying to force their eyes open, but there was this black, viscous liquid that was pouring down in front of them, and they couldn't really see very well. But we as the players could see as Tim moved us to a different scene in Foundry, one that he had titled The Catastrophe, which is always a good place to start. So, the players who were sort of conscious, I think Silrona and Bren mostly, were sort of able to pick up on 3 figures or 3 voices, and we could see that there was one robed female elf, a armored, I think, human male archer, and a Konrasu, a Pathfinder creature that is like a cosmic plant thing.
Yeah, it's like a kind of like an intelligent inanimate object from what it looked like, but also a plant. It was interesting. Definitely kind of weird. Although I don't know if the plated person or archer was a human. I'm thinking not, because if they're wrapped up in all this, maybe we found out that it was it was like a lot of humans involved. So I doubt that he's actually human. At least that's what I mean. I think that's what the intended thing is, that they're either there aren't humanoids at all, or they are just different races.
Maybe. I could be mistaken, for sure. We'll have to ask Tim, or perhaps we'll get that answer at some point in the future. But we could hear a conversation between them. The male voice, I think it was, saying, "They're too late." The female saying that there must be something we can do. The Konrasu apparently calculating something. And I think it was the male again who was saying, "They've already died, is there nothing we can do?" And then the female saying that we still have hope. And at this point, as everyone's partially coming to, or just barely, because you're sort of sinking in and out of this black viscous liquid, this tar-like fluid. Ren was able to see somewhat as he looked around. He could see other faces and other figures who were seemingly stuck within this substance, just right next to him and around him. Silrona was trying to, force himself to move, but was still unable to do so. And we could sort of get the sense at some point, as Silrona and Teeks were sort of sinking in, it felt like other souls that were trapped within this fluid were pushing past them. And I think it was after this the Konrasu that said that there is another way, as we discussed, Your Highness. And the male voice was like, "What do you mean we discussed?" And the female voice said, "Do it." This can't be the end. And a beam of magic reached from the Konrasu that connected to this large mass and the female elf. And we could hear her voice in our heads saying, "Do not panic, I am here to help." And then many mouths speaking at once, and Finn could feel this as well. She could feel her mouth moving as many voices said, "My triumph is at hand. I have all the power I require." And it was like everyone was speaking at once with this same voice, this same one that was laughing earlier. Ren being a bit more coherent at that moment, he could see a massive black arm coming from the mass and slamming onto the Konrasu, sort of apparently killing it and shattering it. And the elf, like, slumped in despair. And again, we were trying to push through this thing, we were trying to apply our fortitude to push out of this space. Or, no, we were applying will saves to push out of this space.
We were making will saves to interact with trying to, like, swim through, I guess, this black substance or whatever's happening to us.
Yeah. Like whatever was pulling us in. So, like, Kava was coming out of it, Sorora and Finn were sinking back in. There was a different voice that said, "It is the only way, do not be alarmed." And the voice was described as, like, connecting with an old imaginary friend, in a way. And the archer seemed surprised to maybe see this person or hear this voice. And while the other voice of the substance was, demanding to know what was happening, suddenly the souls around became more animated, like there was this power surging through them. And the voice was speaking, this new voice was speaking a prayer that we could recognize. Well, I forget who it was. I think it was Silrona that was able to recognize it as an elven prayer.
Yeah.
But we didn't know Elven, so we couldn't translate the words. But light filled everyone's bodies, and the tar mass was sort of broken down. And then at that moment, everyone else began to awaken. And as they were coming to, we could see other people in Thornhold. And one of those people was a catfolk by the name of Theo, who is the new character that Kavo's player is playing. And this catfolk, with no human ancestry, was not affected by whatever seemed to have happened to everyone else in Thornhold. And he was sort of sneaking around, scoping out the pockets of the unconscious people and perhaps grabbing what he could. But when we were waking up, we saw there were also, at this point, reptilian creatures that were crawling up from wells and other holes in the ground. And one of them, as it crawled up, shouted that we will conquer the surface. And we recognized these creatures as Zolgaths, which used to be troglodytes, which were renamed recently.
Yes. Which it's probably gonna be hard for me to remember because I'm so used to the trogs. Zolgaths, the lizard men, but the underground lizard men, not the snake ones or the ones in the swamps.
Yeah, man. Like my very first game of Pathfinder that I ever ran, because it was based on one of the pre-written adventures, and it was a bunch of troglodytes who had taken over a tower.
Yeah, so. Man. Honestly, like, I think there should be more troglodyte or Zolgath uprisings. You know what I mean? Take down the man, right? Those damn surface dwellers. Like, we gotta rise up.
They deserve it,
right? Yeah, they're always looking down on us.
Underrated enemy, though.
Yeah.
Like, underrated low-level enemy. Everybody's all about goblins, but,
Oh, man, I could totally see, like, I want to do another idea for a campaign where it's like a city campaign, but instead of it being like, there's like, like in the sewers, they're like troglodytes, or Zolgaths trying to like take over the surface world, and they're going to use this city as like a jumping off point, and they'll kill everybody here and take over the surface. Yeah, that's what I want. Well, that's a lot of work, so
Fair.
That one's a free one. So anyone's listening.
But yeah, as we were coming to, we could see these creatures coming up to the surface. Theo reacted pretty quickly as they began to attack him, sort of hitting them with this necromantic blast of ancient dust. And as everyone was coming to, this is when combat started. So we were sort of dealing with fighting in this port area. There were some buildings around, there were more unconscious people around. And as the Zolgaths were fighting us, they were also, like, attacking the unconscious people and basically just killing them as they went. Teeks was doing spells, and she was, like, demanding to know what the hell happened to them because they just came to and now were being attacked. Silrona went to shake Bren awake. And again, as the fighting continued, the Zolgaths were, like, killing some unconscious people nearby. Finn came back to consciousness. I think Finn came back to consciousness on her own. Or did Silrona help her up as well?
She came back to consciousness after the first round on her own. And then Silrona spent the first couple rounds just getting people off the ground. And, you know, I think that Theo took the brunt of a lot of stuff because he was, you know, off picking pockets, and then all of a sudden he was surrounded by troglodytes, and you know, that's fair. I mean, he's looting some unconscious people, so there's that karma for you.
Yeah, but I forget what he's playing. I think he's a summoner, maybe.
Yeah, we don't know that. It hasn't been revealed really to the characters, but Theo is a summoner.
Yeah, I want to see where that's going. Because I've been wanting to play a summoner for a while. For if you know me, for obvious reasons.
Do it, Calvin. Do it. You should have been a summoner for this campaign. Although if we lost Teeks, that would be pretty sad. I feel like Teeks is like a core member. He's just like the heart of the team.
Clearly, I need to be in more campaigns.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Theo was fighting for his life out there. Bren was unleashing flurries of blows. I did have a chance to use my hydraulic torrent spell because I happened to have 3 enemies who were lined up, and I was like, sweet, enemies in a line. This never happens. Yeah, and there was also a very large one that was kind of getting closer to us. And Finn dropped a fireball on that one and some of the others. But when it exploded, it also killed a civilian, which Teeks was not happy with.
Yeah, but then Silrona just threw a fireball right afterwards. Anyway.
Yeah, which Teeks was also not happy with. Maybe less so than originally killing the guy in the first place.
Yeah, he's already dead. Like it's not gonna hurt him more. That's not how this game works.
I guess.
Yeah,
that's
I think,
okay then.
Well, it was funny. I think Silrona. I want to try out my new punching ability. So Silrona like walked up to get into punching range, and I think I walked up to the obvious wizard or sorcerer or magic Zolgath. Mm-hmm. Zolgath.
Yeah.
I have to say it a bunch of times so I remember. And I called him, and Silrona called him out to being a nerd because he's like, game respect game, and he was like, and then he's like, okay, nerd, I'm gonna punch you, and then like we proceeded to duke it out. So like I think also like it tried to hit me with its mace and then cast a spell, so I tried to punch it, cast a spell. I think I finally landed one hit on it the whole fight, and I did like 4 damage, and I was like, oh yeah, sick. And then like immediately like I think it ran away because all of his friends were dying, and then Silrona just cast magnetic acceleration, which is a pretty sick spell. Basically it's just like you just real cannon a piece of metal, a small piece of metal, and just shoot it at somebody, and he was able to get a headshot right before he was like able to leave the map.
Yeah, with a quick snipe and a boom headshot. As the leader tried to retreat, as we were taking down the rest of these guys, Bren was getting some staff attacks in. Finn used a dimensional assault on one guy. Theo used more of that necromantic dust and some other occultish spells. But yeah, we did manage to take down the rest of them. Silrona was, of course, in the course of the fight, because you did have to step away for a bit, Silrona was pulled into the cowboy dimension momentarily.
Yeah.
I'm also very curious what he ended up doing in there, because it was only for a little bit of time.
He had to move furniture.
Ah.
He was moving furniture around for an old lady in in the cowboy dimension. That's what he was doing.
Much less chaotic than what we were dealing with.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
But yeah, as more people were coming to, they were able to fight off some of the other creatures. There were some like smaller skirmishes as like more of the Zolgath were fought off by the, they were certainly outnumbered as more people were coming to. As we came into the beginning of the aftermath of this catastrophe. At that point, Teeks was able to see a red dot falling from the sky on the horizon, and it landed in the ocean about a half-mile away. She did want to investigate, but first we had to be introduced to Theo. We met him. He seems like a pretty chill guy. We introduced everybody else, and then we set about to looting the Zolgaths. I misspelled it in my notes. The Zolgaths. We were looting them. And during that time, more people were picking up, just sort of reacting to seeing, like, all the people that had collapsed around them, and in addition, all the people who had been killed and all the damage from the battle. So, yeah, I like to think we were making some effort to help them, but maybe not a whole lot. Maybe not enough. But Teeks really did want to investigate that object, so after some time, we set out in a boat to where the object had landed. And that's when we started talking about, like, what happened to us. We talked about the vision. No one knew exactly what the Konrasu was. So that's going to be something that the characters need to do some research on. The people, from what we could put together, the ones that we were able to see, they may have been adventurers of some type, but we didn't know anything about the creature that we were, like, part of. But in the course of this conversation, and I think that's about when Silrona was able to pop back into the material plane, which I imagine would have, like, almost capsized the boat that they were on.
It was a very small boat. It just kind of just jumped on.
We were able to get close to where the object had landed, and we could see that it was a body that had been, like, shattered and broken apart on impact at high speed on the water. But it had once been a human person who apparently fell from a great height. Likely they had been flying and were affected by whatever knocked out others of human ancestry. So you could see some of the body parts. There was an arm nearby with a satchel attached that I think it was either Finn or Silrona that had done a detect magic on, and could sense that there was a powerful object within there. So while some of the team was recovering that, Teeks went into shark mode, which is something I always look for an excuse to do. She turned into a shark to see if anything had sunk below the surface.
We should put up the picture that Chibi made of shark. It's just a shark in a dress. I think it's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, man, it's from way back in our beach episode, and I think it's very. I love it. That's Teeks' shark form. It always has a dress, no matter what she's been wearing before.
So you know it's Teeks.
Yeah, otherwise you might think it's just a regular shark. Yeah, so she turned into a shark and swam down to see if anything had sunk below there. She did find the head of this person that was currently being, like, nibbled at by, like, a crab and a hagfish. She scared them off because she's a goddamn shark and tried to recover the head. Trying to be as delicate as possible with her shark teeth. Did not really work out. There was still some damage from her picking it up and swimming back to the surface. She was able to bring it back and get onto the boat with Finn and Bren's help. Meanwhile, the satchel itself had letters in it. It looked like this was possibly a courier. There were letters, some books. There was an illustrated book, a book of architect plans, a book of warding prayers, and several scrolls of flying, which seemed like the manner with which this courier would deliver the items in his satchel. And as we were examining the bag, we could see that there was a label on the inside of it, and printed on that label was Property of Wizards of the Sword Coast, Postal Department.
which is pretty funny. That's pretty funny, Tim. I appreciate that.
Now, I have some ideas about where this mistake, like this postal error, this mail that ended up perhaps not where it was supposed to be, in the wrong hands, or perhaps not what was intended to be sent from the Wizards of the Sword Coast. I have some ideas about where this is going. I feel like we should probably watch our backs. There might be someone coming after us for this property, whatever it is. We probably don't want to hang on to this for too long. But Bren was able to make a drawing of the guy, and perhaps has found some new, hidden talents that he didn't know he had. Bren might be something of an artist after this.
So then we chuck his body back into the water as like we did that, right? Like it's like this is his funeral.
I mean, I don't want to say chucked, but I mean, kind of. Yeah. Kind of worried about carrying a head around. There was some suggestion that we just stick it in the bag of holding. But with the drawing that Bren was able to make, we were able to, I guess, let this person have a burial at sea as best as they could, considering how they ended up there in the first place.
Yeah, definitely sucks. And then now we all realize that, like, oh my god, like, there's going to be several people who are flying. We're not anymore.
Like people who may have been shapeshifted, people using the fly spell, all suddenly finding themselves, crashing to the ground. Quite a big deal.
Yeah, which I think there was a segue. I think Teague's got a call.
Yeah, as we got back to Thornhold, Teague's got a mental call from Sister Gorell, a member of the Harpers, who Teague's has had some, we had some interactions with in the first campaign, and a little bit in the second. And she was saying that every human on the material plane went through the same events. It wasn't just a localized event. And this is when we realized that Kavo must have gone through the same thing as well. And we're kind of putting together like how big a deal this would be. Every single person of human ancestry in the material plane just fell unconscious for the last few moments and had the same vision, or seemingly part of the same creature, all trying to pull themselves out of it before being rescued by this unseen figure. And as that realization was setting in, that is where the session ended for the moment. We realized the calamity that we have now found ourselves in. Because at the point, a comparison had been made to like the snap from Infinity War, and how like, even people who weren't snapped, they would obviously be like if a pilot of a plane suddenly disappeared, then what's gonna happen to the plane, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the entire material plane, the entire planet, this region, this realm, whatever, everybody just like went unconscious for a bit. And yeah, it was indeed a catastrophe, and we are indeed in the aftermath of it.
Yeah, it was such an interesting campaign, or start to a campaign. Definitely, I think it was super cool because, like I said, we didn't have a lot of, not motivation, but like, we didn't have like a trajectory, right? We were just kind of like reorientating, like, our priorities, trying to figure out what we wanted to do, and then bang, this crazy wild shit happened, and now we have to deal with it. So I think Tim mentioned that this is going to be a little bit more of an open-ended campaign where it's kind of just like whatever you guys want to do. He's figured out a bunch of stuff to interact with, so we got some options to explore, and maybe we can find out what happened and uncover the mystery of this weird black goo soul monster, and those three adventurers who I guess kind of failed at stopping this thing. Maybe that's what it is, or whatever ritual was being enacted, because I think in the thing it looks like we were like in like a ritual circle or something. So maybe we get to go find those dudes, or meet up with Sister Gorell, or maybe deliver these notes, these mails that we have. Figure out where they came from or who are they going to. Maybe Serena will get a job. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be our side quest, like our those quests that are like those collectible things. You have to go to different locations and do something. That'll be our side quest during this campaign. Yeah, I know Tim has a new encounter table that he has set up, and I'm very curious to get some interaction with it. I want to see where that I want to see like the mechanical stuff of where that list goes, but I'm also super curious about like what the heck was this entity that we were stuck in, and who were those people and why were they there. I don't know, like I really enjoy having all these new questions to ask and not having answers yet, and not entirely being sure how to get those answers, to be honest. All of it is still quite a mystery at this point in time.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to see, and you guys will have to see, because we'll definitely be doing recaps of this campaign going forward in the future.
Yeah, there was one thing that Tim did mention sort of after the game regarding the title of the campaign. That one of the titles he had originally drafted and I think posted in the chat like ages ago was "You Are Not the Hero." I think it was supposed to refer to the other three people that we had seen there, or maybe something else even. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sick though. It was such a metal opening, and I'm excited to see where this campaign goes, and what the hell is going on, and why only humans? That's so weird.
Yeah, why? What a weirdly specific thing. I don't know. I straight up can't think of anything. I can't think of anything we've come across before that would cause this effect, or who those people could be. This is all new stuff. But yeah, that is how that campaign started, and I'm sure we'll be covering it a bit more in the future. I did want to mention before we get into the conclusion of the episode, for people who are paying attention to the Pasion blog, which I guess people should be, they did recently put out Field Test 3 for Starfinder, and it features a couple of the ancestries that are coming to the books, specifically the Vesk and the Android, which...
Ooh, cool.
Yeah. These are conversions from the original version of the game. I do want to do some playtesting with them, because now that we have two different races, I can go and make like we have two races and we have two classes, so I could go and make some actual like separate characters with all Starfinder stuff instead of having to adapt like some Pathfinder stuff. So that's kind of a playtest thing that I want to do. So I just wanted to mention that in case people are curious or wondering like what Starfinder 2e is going to look like. Obviously, Starfinder First Edition has like, I don't know, 100 different aliens you can be. So I feel like it's going to take a while to publish all of those. Or they could just make a book with all of them. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pasion does do all that all the time. There's like the Book of Aliens or whatever. Or like maybe they'll do it with their monster manual. They'll just be like, oh, by the way, here's all these classes that you could be who were enemies before, but now you can just be one of them if you'd like.
Exactly. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that, so people go ahead and check that out, and I'm sure we will talk about it on the podcast at some point in the future, but I think that's going to do it for the episode for this week.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks a ton, everybody out there, for coming by and listening to our podcast. If you want to hear more from us, check out the links to the channel. If you want to see some more, Pathfinder stuff, if you want to see more Lancer stuff, we got a whole bunch of that on the channel, as well as live gaming streams. If you're interested in any of the current games going on, currently playing through Control, which has been very fun, very interesting. Baldur's Gate 3, which everybody loves, and Mass Effect Andromeda, which is really kicking up recently since we learned some villain motivations and have come face to face with the baddie himself. Additionally, linked below is a bunch of Lancer writers and creators, so go ahead and check out all their work. We may be perhaps having some conversations with some of them in the near future. Perhaps. Also linked below is the Twitch channel of the Untold Stories Project. I'm around there several times. In the new year, they've got their stream schedule sort of starting back up, so we're going to be back with some new stuff is coming up. Some series are continuing. Be sure to check out There's Something in the Dark series, because it's been really fun to hang out and watch that. And also the Baldur's Gate stuff on that channel, because I've done some co-op streams with that channel. And I think that's about it. Oh, one more thing. Green Ronin recently published an astonishing adventure for Mutants and Masterminds onto Roll20. And this is you can purchase it, you'll get like you get like character tokens and maps and stuff. You get characters, character sheets ready to go. You get a map, you get some villain and hero tokens, and some bystander tokens. It is a story involving the next gen, who were like teen superheroes, in the history of the Mutants and Mastermind setting. And it is also written by the GM of the Something in the Dark game. So I wanted to make sure to give that a shout out, because I think it's very cool. I'm very happy to see he's got some published work out there. So definitely go check that out. I'll put a link to the Roll20 page where you can purchase that below. And I think that's it now for the episode. Is there anything else I need to remember, Ramon? I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think that's it. I feel like we should probably put these shoutouts like somewhere in the earlier portion of the podcast, just to give these people a little bit more face time to our audience, because we think all these people do really good, wonderful jobs at producing all this cool content and all the cool stuff that we do on the channel, or at least Calvin does on the channel. I should say. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, we'll think about that. Maybe have to restructure the whole podcast for that. I feel like our intros are full of flim flam already.
I know.
But yeah, thanks again, everybody, for coming by. To all of our catastrophic GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.